Hey guys, welcome back to Seller Sessions. Again, bring back friend of the show, Dr. Yev. How you doing, Yev?
Doing good, Dan. How are you?
Yeah, good. For those who don't know you, do you want to give a little bit of an introduction to yourself?
Yeah, I'm coming from a data analytics perspective, just trying to find patterns and trying to push the boundaries a little bit in finding metrics that may be revealing how to combine external marketing and Amazon. And I have a couple of softwares to try to get into analytics and really try to find patterns. So I'm seeing different patterns across brands and different types of brands Amazon sellers. So really trying to look at the diversity of what sellers are doing.
Cool. One of the things that we're going to be talking about today is FBA Onsite. Do you want to give the audience a little bit of an explanation, if for those who don't know what it is?
Yeah, and it's something I found out fairly recently about, and so I'm actually like living near Seattle, Washington. So sometimes people, they visit Amazon and they know that I'm here, so then they just reach out and then we grab lunch, things like that. So I'm just kind of hearing what Amazon sellers what they're dealing with, what are the up-to-date things that they're hearing about, and one of the things FBA Onsite is where it's kind of like a mix between FBA and FBM or Seller Fulfilled Prime, where basically you have your own warehouse that Amazon inspects, and then they qualify it as a FBA warehouse. So, but you have more control for that. So you can be in FBA, FBA Onsite, and then different types of FBM. So I heard about that, and then I've been thinking about geo-rank a lot and kind of ranking it regionally and inventory, and then just found out how what this means for that. So we'll get a little bit into that.
Let's get into it then. Let's talk about this. Obviously, we've discussed many times on geo-rank. This is something that you've been spearheading for a long period of time. You produce data. Evelyn Demirov, same thing. He's coming to the same conclusions. Obviously, you're going to get people, naysayers, who don't believe in it, and that's fine. But you got the data to back it up. So you work with the data and you go forward with it. So let's talk about these locations. We'll talk about built-up areas. We're going to talk about how facility centres are distributed and how much stock levels are there and how that could have an influence on the location of ranking there.
Yeah, and so one of the things to keep in mind in terms of whether it's FBA Onsite or if you don't have FBA Onsite, and it's been like a beta program for a while, but you may have had those emails and maybe have ignored it. But it's one of the things where I'm not a logistics person or a supply chain person, so I'm sure there's benefits where there's different margins, control, and there's different benefits there that are for just kind of fulfillment reasons that may be important. But what I'm talking about is more, are there also kind of ranking and sales and marketing type of indirect effects that could have depending on how you're executing your shipping and fulfillment strategy. So basically what this means is that, well, one thing that we're seeing, and I'm still getting this question where people aren't sure, like, are sales correlated with inventory? And there's an effect where a brand is growing, they're going to need more inventory, and then you're kind of having more sales. So it's not like a causal relationship. But then the other one is where when you're sending more inventory, what's happening is that Amazon is redistributing that to more warehouses, so you're becoming closer to customers, and then you're more likely to rank higher, so we can track regionally different search result rank positions, so you're ranking higher. And then if you're out of stock, then it kind of like drops. But what people don't know is you may be temporarily out of stock or regionally out of stock, where you think you're in stock at the aggregate level, at the country level, but you're actually out of stock at individual warehouses. So it's important to keep that in mind. And this is where then people are saying, well, what can you do about it? And what are different fulfillment strategies? And you can't, if you're just normally in FBA, you can't tell Amazon, all right, ship it to this warehouse. They decide all of that based on sales history and all of that data that they have, and based on competitor data too. Where should they have similar related products, what warehouses? So FBA Onsite becomes a role into that. So one of the main differences, and this is just me hearing from different brands, is that with the FBA Onsite, so one thing that usually happens is that it's your own warehouses, so you usually have several ones, not like hundreds, but you have a couple that could probably be in main areas where there's high sales, whether it's basically at close to metropolitan areas or high population areas. So then when you get a sale, Amazon decides kind of which FBA to take it from, the regular FBA or the FBA Onsite. So by having the Onsite, you're basically sales in dominant areas are getting fulfilled, but then it's giving more freedom for Amazon in the normal FBA to distribute your inventory in like the fringe areas or where there may be less sales, still important. It could be 10, 20, 30% of all sales for a brand. It varies quite a bit, but in areas where it may be like further away from customers in states that are like, maybe it just takes a couple of states or to be within that 1 or 2 day shipping period. So having the onsite gives you more freedom where you're kind of like everywhere. So I think that's the important part. One, just these patterns that we're finding that brands are discovering through measuring geo-rank kind of tracking is that, and also looking at their inventory maps where you see like where Amazon actually redistributes you after you send it just to the distribution center, is that some brands are actually like West Coast dominant or East Coast dominant, or like the inventory is distributed inward. They may have known that from sales, but then it makes sense, and they actually see that in the data where it's because most of their inventory is in like California and then maybe some in Texas, but not as much on the East Coast. And why is that? So this is an interesting question. Is it because of sales history? Is it because of actually like consumer behavior and psychology of like, when people see your brand compared to other brands, just, I don't know, like the West Coast is a little bit different than East Coast, or, like Texas is different than other states. So there's different psychologies there. So people may be more likely to buy one brand over another for different reasons than price. And like price is the main reason, but there's other reasons as well. So Amazon may decide where like this brand, we're just getting higher conversion rates on this coast. So let's, like when they're doing the transfer of inventory, let's just send more of this brand to the East Coast and more of this brand to the West Coast. So Amazon decides that, if you have tens of thousands of units, you may be more likely to be everywhere, meaning in the 100 of Amazon individual warehouses, but you still may have just like 1 or 2 units in kind of like individual areas. And someone might buy something in Montana or somewhere, and then like, all right, now you're just down to like 1 unit or 0 units, and then Amazon transfers it there. But if you have onsite, then Amazon may keep more units at those locations. So it's one of those things where it's like being everywhere, and you can increase that chance with this. So this is just, it was interesting to me. One, it was confirmation for me. We're like, yes, GeoRank is real, because there's a demand and there's actual reason for the FBA Onsite to exist.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Getting back to ranking and just generally overall in terms of inventory, what is your take on, you can get you go from your 3PL just-in-time shipments to get in. Sometimes you've got a period where they're moving internally between the different FBA facility centers. You may misstep and like lose a couple of days where you're out of stock periodically for a short period of time. And then you've got that process of, you just load your stock in like you're going in just before Q4 and just let it sit there. What impacts are you seeing on all of those type of processes, if you like, or those, for a better word for it, protocols? So just in time, then you've got like, you may miss the delivery dates so that you're out by 36 hours or so, or there's an internal shift, and as opposed to just loading up your stock and eating up some fees,
Yeah, great question. And this is, I have some answers. It's really hard to answer because it depends on so many things that are inventory and financial related for the brand and their entire fulfillment strategy. And I know when I was leading all of the marketing at HeroClub, one of the like biggest discussions was like, all right, when do we ship everything in? Is it going to be air freight? Just like all of those decisions. And, do we need the inventory for retail, for Amazon, for our own website? And this is when we're like really scaling Facebook ads for our website. So it's like, where do we send what? And it's like, well, I was always like, before under the pressure, let's send as much as we can to Amazon, because, at least our website, we can have some more control of our marketing and what we can do there to like delay or take future orders, or there's like all of that. But to Amazon, if we're losing ranking, or if we're like showing data to Amazon that they're like zeros, there's like 0 sales, this is like regionally, broadly. I didn't even know about GeoRank like back then. It was just more about just kind of like thinking about it where, well, we're still getting 0 sales in certain areas. So it's like bad metrics to Amazon. So it's always under the pressure of like, let's just send as much as we can, but then we're limited by, like what, how much finances you have, how much you can actually send. And then it essentially becomes a supply chain question, like ultimately. Yes, it's like balancing marketing and listing and all of this other stuff, but it becomes a logistics fulfillment and a supply chain question. So then you need to see, and I was actually having a discussion in the Facebook group where this brand was kind of just talking about their data, where they're like either like running low on stock and deciding like how much to send, how fast to send, and usually like what their cadence is and like how much they send and how often. And this varies for every brand, but it's like, all right, we want there to be, like 10 days overlap of inventory and making sure that we're like refilling every like 8 weeks or something like that. But it depends on the size of the brand. And is that 1,000 units or is that 10,000 units? So it depends quite a bit. But then this is where you need to look at your numbers and just to see how can you maximize that. Is it by the additional 1 or 2 weeks of increasing the frequency of that cadence of like when you're actually sending it, or making sure that that overlap is bigger? Because if you say like I want a 10-day overlap, meaning that by the time things are like gonna sell out if nothing comes in, but making sure that something comes in, that there's going to be like that cushion period, just extending that out. Because what this means, and this is the perception of most Amazon sellers are out there, and it may be because of the analytics we're getting from Amazon, is that like you're out of stock or you're not, right? Like you're getting low on inventory, or like you have full or you're out. But this is based on like regionally, like
which is much more complex.
Yeah, exactly. And we don't know that, are we out of stock in like 25% of the warehouses? And these are like all kinds of like metrics that are like very interesting. I'm kind of like pushing some of these out, but this is something to keep in mind, is that, what should be your replenishment schedule when you're considering like the individual warehouses, not just like the broad, we're like, oh, yep, I'm in stock, I still have 1,000 units. I'm like, yeah, you have 1,000 units, but you just went down to being in 50 warehouses, not like 75 warehouses like you were before. So I would say make it like a really supply chain focus and look at your calculations on like financial, like how can you maximize that without losing other parts of the business, taking finances away from other, like team growth or marketing aspects like that. But, just don't let the money sit around if you could increase that frequency of inventory or more inventory.
Makes sense.
I don't know. Do you have a different answer? Because I know when it comes to holidays, it's probably a different answer, because you want to sell as much as possible, but then you don't want to have all of this storage.
Well, no, it's a hard one, because we know that the influence with PPC towards ranking, and then you've got the impact of conversion rate. But then if you've got a low amount of stock in, what's the impact there? I'm doing some more research for that. We had the kind of chat before call, and there's a few theories I got, which I'll explain later. But I definitely think, you pull these different levers, and then you may do something exceptionally well. You may get the above average conversion rate on that product, and it affects your organic rank, but then you've seen it drop. But then you not got eyes on inventory, and it could be the fact that, it got shifted from one FBA center to another, or you're doing just in time, or it's a multitude of reasons. But I think that you have to have eyes on everything. So that's where I stand with it at the moment. But let's have a chat about desktop versus mobile.
Yeah. So one of the things to kind of finish the FBA Onsite part, which is actually related here. So one of the things that this caught one of the brand's attention is that they saw different effects on like how their sales and like their inventory, how everything was affected depending on their fulfillment strategy. So that's where they noticed where part of the year, one of their fulfillment strategies was like, there's like huge effect there, like something was happening somewhere. But is it because they're like in the dominant areas or around? And then another part of the year where like things like went back to normal. So one of the things, some brands, they're like, I never see any effects of geo-rank, where like everything like seems normal, or there's like these opposite effects. Some brands like see heavy effects. And this is because there's so many factors, like really like region, like that distance, the inventory, that's one of them. It's one of the main ones when you think about inventory, but it's about buying behavior and buying history. And then it comes to like, what device are people buying from, mobile, desktop. So this is one of the things I released, just this like you're able to track. I know people like do this manually, like, all right, I check on my phone and then I check my desktop, or they have team member check on the actual mobile versus desktop. But one of the things that I'm noticing, kind of like tracking this at scale, is that one, there are obvious differences between mobile and desktop for a lot of brands, and maybe a lot of brands like didn't even know this, and sometimes bigger brands, not just like a couple of rank spots, but like certain keyword for a product is ranked like number 7, and another one's like ranked number like 20, or like something like way bigger. But one of the things that I'm really excited about that I'm measuring is the volatility of some of those placements, meaning that some brands, the mobile is like really volatile, it's just like all over the place, while the desktop is stable. And for some brands, it's the other way. So so I'm trying to understand like why does it differ across brands? Is it because of their marketing strategy? Is it because their audience, the perfect customer, is actually more shopping on desktop or on mobile or not? And there was a really interesting study in 2020. It was Ready Cloud posted this, and I posted some of this data on my Facebook page. Is that in last year around holidays, is that there were more purchases happening on mobile than desktop. Why this is important? Because before this, it was always on desktop. So yes, people are browsing on mobile, meaning that like mobile is more important than desktop. Right now, you can go on SEM Rush and look at Amazon.com analytics, and like you can see all their billions of views, and you can see that mobile is like 73% of the traffic. It's like live January 2020 data. You can like look at that. So people are on mobile, but that's just browsing, right? And some people purchase, and the pattern used to be where people would go back on desktop and make the purchase. So desktop used to be dominant, and part of that data is revealing that last year may have been when the shift happened, where now people are actually purchasing more on mobile. And is it because mobile technology is improving, more sites are getting mobile optimized? It's just easier to shop on Amazon now. Like other sites, I usually go on desktop and purchase. On Amazon, well, at least from my wife's experience, it's just like shopping on the phone because it's so easy now. So what's interesting is that there's different shopping behaviors when like it's multi-device, right? So, but this is kind of more like psychology and behavior, and this is data that Amazon sees. So from my perspective, it's like, well, Amazon sees this data. So if you're a brand and you're doing a whole bunch of ranking campaigns or whatever strategy, search 5 by rebates, like discounts, even like real sales, like no rebates, like 100% like full price sales, but it's all like mobile traffic from, like from ManyChat or using Seller Chatbot or like wherever the traffic is coming from. That traffic is, Amazon sees that traffic and then that traffic purchases. But if you're, let's say, like giving instructions that people are buying on mobile, then that's like, is that a bad signal for Amazon? Because they're like, all right, there's no desktop sales. That's a little bit weird. So it's interesting that this 2020 study came out, and then also kind of like starting to track this, but keeping track of volatility, where like if it's too volatile, so does that mean you need to slow down in that strategy, or do you need to like balance out forcing more sales into like the other placement or device? Do you need to optimize your listing? Again, you want to probably optimize it for mobile, but certain brands, and I hope the brands know this, is that they have more of a desktop or more of a older audience. So actually you don't need to over optimize for mobile, because you're going to hurt your like main customers, and who knows how that's going to affect their ranking versus mobile differences. So just thinking about those factors.
Cool. I mean, we've kind of covered a huge amount there. Is there anything you want to add before we go?
No, that's it. Well, a lot of stuff, but I think that was good.
We'll give it out in bite-sized chunks. But what's the best way that people can reach you? Facebook group, email, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely best in the Facebook group. So if you search for Zon Tracker or AMZ Jet, those are the 2 different softwares. My Facebook group should come up. So definitely in there. Yeah. LinkedIn too. If you want to message, but usually Facebook is better.
Cool. Guys, you'll be able to see Yev at Seller Sessions Live if you've purchased a ticket. We've sold out as of a couple of weeks ago now, but we do have a waiting list. So if you want to drop a mail to danny@sellersessions.com and put in the subject line wait list, if any tickets become available, we'll free those up. Yev, thank you for joining us. If this is your first time, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you again in the next few days. Take care.